We are live on Social Girl Song One representing Philly Hot Radio, and I want to thank my lovely guests for coming on here. It's been a while, a few months ago, I had the opportunity to have some awesome guests come on, and we talked about gun violence. And I learned some things about it. One big thing I learned is that unlike television, where they'll resurrect the dead, in this thing called real life, once a life has been taken, it doesn't come back from the dead. And I just wish a lot of us that are eager to pull a trigger to take another life takes heed to that it not just affects the family that you're trying to target, but it also affects your family. So just think about it. All the times that you go to pull a trigger, your family is affected as well. How? Because if you ever get caught, your family has to beg the judge, the jury, not to execute you. How ironic. So I think maybe sometimes we might want to think twice before we pull the trigger or want to take another person's life that's not deserving of it. But I want to turn the tables on my guests who are here and talk more about gun violence. So I have, mind introducing yourself. Let's start with the lovely lady first. To my oh my gosh, is she my left or my right? To my right, you are.
I'm in the council of Philly Public Weddings.
And what do you do?
So I have a wedding business, but through the wedding business, I mentor youth. I have been mentoring youth from Cheney University, but I'm looking to expand and mentor more youth to keep them off the streets. I've been assisting youth with job training, hospitality, etiquette, and life skills.
And the gentleman, the handsome gentleman, to my left. You are handsome, So tell us who you are and what do you do?
My name is Cleus Young, and first and foremost, I'm a children's author. So that actually helps with what I do. I'm also a public speaker. I do workshops within the community. I help out with different occasions that I see fit in regards to other organizations that I collaborate with. And also I have my own nonprofit organization, which is called the Tele Foundation. And what we do, we provide what is called universal safety for the community itself.
All right. This is the part I don't really particularly care too much about. That thing called gun violence. Yes. So before we went live, you and I had spoken about, some of the things that takes place, basically how it destroys families. And I don't think people on the other side of the gun really understand, comprehend what that means. I'm gonna reiterate again. It's easy to take a life. And it's fine, but I don't think what happens is they fully understand what happens after you take a life. Because once you are caught, then comes now not just that family that you destroyed, but now it's your family that is destroyed. And I don't think people understand that. And you know firsthand how that feels and where I'm coming from. Just recently, you had lost your brother.
Yes, to gun violence.
To gun violence. No, mad shout out to those who are thinking about it and actually put the gun down. But tell us, what happened to you?
So we're still trying to figure out what was the altercation that caused him to be in that circumstance. But my brother, which actually, I'm from Jamaica, So that's where the killing happened. My brother was considered one of the top chefs in the state, where he has his own restaurant. And after the closing of the restaurants, like a couple of them were outside, like just having drinks on just relaxing after a good days of work. And someone came up and out of the group of people that were there, they targeted to shoot my brother. Up to this day, we're still trying to figure out through investigation what caused the killing. But at the end of the day, we lost someone. And just to fast forward a little to what you were just saying, that it not only impacts the person directly, but it also impacts the family. So the day that we buried our brother, right? 2 days later, his grandmom passed away because it was so devastating for her to deal with it. She had a heart condition, but that even speeded up of dealing with it, because it was looking at it that such a talented and gifted person, at the end of the day, here's a group of people sitting, enjoying themselves, and then someone just comes along and target him personally. I think he got 7 shots in the stomach, in the head, and in the back. And while I'm sharing that and seeing that happen in Jamaica, a month before that, a friend of mine here in Philadelphia, he got shot the same way, in his head, in his back, and in his stomach. So it's not only just happening in Jamaica, it's happening all over. But for me, it really opened up my eye from a different angle when I started to hear about gun violence now. Totally different. Before I was like, oh, let's get justice. Let's get the person who did it. And right now, like, that doesn't satisfy me when you talk about getting justice. Like, how could you put what is considered either a monetary figure or the person being caught and sentenced to jail? Like, all of that wouldn't even bring back my brother.
Right.
So for me, I can't look at that. There's no justice in it. The way I took it as a close brother, I took it in that aspect of saying, what can I make out of this? What's the best circumstance that I could look out of this? Where I'm not looking at as a loss and going into this depressive state, but rather it happened at my step. And what I mean by my step, this is something that goes on a day-to-day basis. It just happened to show up at my step today. So what could I do now where I'm not going in a depressive state? Just like his grandma, she was depressed about it, and it took her life. So for me, it was looking at what can I do to actually look at it more of, it's the next step of making something great out of this, where I possibly could help someone else not to be in that circumstance later on in life.
Right. So I believe I read yesterday that it was so far 165 homicides to date. 165. Which shouldn't be shocking or alarming. What's sad is I don't even know where to put which one. I get that statement, that slogan, Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
And I get the model, and I get, where they're coming from and why they push Black Lives Matter. But what I don't understand is, why isn't Black lives not mattering to us? Because there are a lot of us killing us at the end of the day. It's not just so much, police that are taking our loved ones' lives. It's us as well. The thing is, how do we get us to stop killing us? So it means something more powerful when we tell the police, hey, don't kill us, because they're looking at us like, well, okay, so you don't mind killing me, but we can't kill you. I'm not justifying either one of them, but at some point, how do we get us to stop? But because both of you deal with children, and I'm hearing a lot when it comes to the killings, I read that there was a 16-year-old that allegedly he's supposed to be a serial killer, Philadelphia. Now, what do you say when you hear the other side, which is just the community, the streets, saying it's the parents' fault?
Well, it takes a village, and we all know it. And so basically, when a child goes out and traumatizes a community, he's already, or she has already been traumatized herself. A child does not just go out and start shooting or stabbing their parents without any key warning signs. It's our job, not just as the parent, because the parent may have needed someone. So it's a community effort, involvement that would go into sourcing out and finding out. That's with outreach. And a lot of times our teachers and our social workers and our programs, they may be short-staffed and they don't have the adequate facilities to go out and be able to do outreach. When a child shows up, they may mark the slip and send it down to the assistant principal's office, and they make the phone call. But what happens when they're truant? You have to just look behind and beyond that point into what's going on with the parents' lives. Because if the parent is struggling, then the child has no other choice but to struggle as well. So the child is given just as much chance as the parent has. So if the parent is homeless, the child is homeless. Okay? If the parent has to go from public housing to public housing or homeless shelter to homeless shelter, the child is lugging those plastic bags with them. Okay? They're lugging those trash bags from one shelter to the next, trying to move in, trying to get in from one shelter. If they can't find housing, they're living day to day. Because I work in shelters, many shelters. So I've seen it. And so the child doesn't have a chance to get taught their education, or even to know that someone actually really cares about them, because they're so busy trying to just live day to day.
Social life.
Exactly, with what their parent is going through. It's deeper than just that.
But is it fair to blame the parents every time a child does something?
Let me share something, because I know one time I was in college and we were in a class, in psychology class, and what happened, the professor was sharing with us, which is called the early years, the tantrum 2 years, but the professor was saying it's not just tantrum. The child goes through what is called an experimental stage, where the child will get up and the child will touch the electric outlet, and then what happens, it shocks the child, and then the child learns, now I'm not supposed to touch this. But when you look at that now, some parent would go and smack the child and say, hey, don't do this. But in order for the child to learn not to touch that, they have to experiment with it. So what I looked at when we were in that class and the professor were going through certain things, like there were parents in the class at that time like wanted to hit their head on the wall. Because here is it that they were punishing their children for the things that they were doing, and the professor is explaining to us that these are called experimental years. The child will experiment with these things, and that's how the child learns. So at the end of the day, it's almost like the parent didn't know these things. So how do you hold them accountable for things that they don't know? So when the child now starts to act out later on in life, I learned from a psychological standpoint that there's so many things that the child goes through on a day-to-day basis that the parent may not be aware of. So it's sometimes hard for you to hold a parent accountable for things that are psychologically or emotionally impacting a child from a young age. So that goes to your question. Some of the things, like responsibility, right? You know, as a parent, you're supposed to be responsible. Say, for instance, you have to get the child something to eat. That's your responsibility. But when it comes to certain emotional things that the child is going to go through, certain parents, they don't know. And it's hard for you to hold them accountable for something that they don't know. And I'm telling you this, if I didn't sit in that psychology class, I wouldn't be aware of these things too. And these are things that they don't tell us purposely, because they want you to be in a circumstance where you don't know. And if you don't know, you can't teach them to the children. And then now when you have a child that grows up and is now unruly in the community, that's what they want. So why would I teach you now the stuff that I need you to give to your child to now make your child somewhat compliant to the rules of society? And when I look at that from a psychological standpoint, I'm like, wow, why am I sitting in a class at this age learning these things when they should be something that is taught to us on a regular basis? And I realize at some point now, I'm like, oh, they're not going to teach you this because they don't want you to teach others. And these are the things that will happen now. You don't know about them, but they impact your behavior and how you interact with society. And that now puts the child in an unruly circumstance where you're seen at 16, you're carrying a girl in a clinic saying that you're a serial killer.
Yeah, it's kind of, I tower a fence when it comes to blaming the parent. And I hear this a lot. Blame the parent, it's the parent's fault, it's the parent's fault. And what happens is, when I read the comments to some of these things, when they're attaching it's the parent's fault, I don't think people are fully understanding that the person that is committing the crime is over the age of 25. Why is the parent still at fault for this grown person's decision that they made? At some point, we need to stop attaching it to every case, because not every case is justified for the parent being at fault. I do understand what you're saying, that the parent, I do believe that parents hold a responsibility for some things.
Yes.
But if you have to work, like I can't see home being wealthy. I have to work. And there are a lot of parents who would undeniably tell you that, now my child would do that. COVID has taught us a lot.
Yes.
All the stuff that parents kept saying, hey, your child was doing, you get to see it at home. But at some point, we need to stop blaming the parent, and let's find a way, as you said, it takes a village to help. But where are these villages at? Because it seems like our villages are going, and our youth are sinking, as they put it, in the cracks.
But if the village don't know, what do they do to? Because I'm telling you, like, I sat in so my minor is in psychology. And it's like I sat down in these different classes and I'm looking at these things that I'm being taught, and I'm like, oh my goodness, they don't teach us these things. Even when you just said, okay, the children are over 25 years old, there's a part of your brain that develops at age 25. And before that, you make irrational decisions. Parents don't know that. So when the child is jumping all over the wall and stuff like that, touching this, touching that, their mind is not developed yet. So it's like these things are not taught to us on a day-to-day basis, so we have no idea. And it's purposely. So it's hard to even say, all right, how do we get the village involved? Because today's village is like, they're busy, as you said, hey, how is it that I'm going to stay home and work when I have to go out and provide, right? The system know that. Look at it just simple as this, like dealing with the school board, right? They typically have meetings when they know the parents are at work. You think they don't know? But yet still they specifically chose that time frame knowing that the parents aren't going to show up. So they can now make decisions based on, oh, the parent didn't show up, so we delegate these decisions now. That's impacting the child, that's later on going to impact the parent.
So let me ask you this, how do you get our youth, or your thoughts on getting these youth to not just not want to be role be the next gangster that they mimic from off of these movies or off these videos that they watch, thinking, I'm cool in my hip if I, put a bullet in somebody. How do you reach children who are still developing, mentally, to get them from that mindset to our mindset?
It starts at ground zero, and it starts at age 0. The minute a mother goes into a hospital, there needs to be a mentor there, not a DHS social worker.
Oh, yes.
There needs to be a mentor and a mentor can be such as myself, such as the gentleman here, such as yourself. It needs to be someone like that comes into the room after the mother has given birth and talks to her and asks her how she's feeling, how she's doing, and what she needs. Not that we're going to take your child away from you. Not that we're going to call the police on you when you don't have enough beds for your child to sleep in. Okay?
Yeah.
Not if your light bill got cut off. Are we going to intervene and call VHS? We're going to try our best to assist you. And if someone is there to care about the parent, whether that be a young parent or an old parent, just because a mother gives birth doesn't mean she has any skills to be a mother, to be a parent. She may not have been taught those skills herself. So now she's giving new birth. So we have to be the rebirth. We have to go into and have some type of coalition that we'll be able to go into the hospitals and talk to the parents if they're able, and talk to the fathers. That's what we have to do. Because if you don't have a mentor from day one, it's almost like a big brother, big sister program.
Right.
Okay? But before they're able to throw a baseball, before they're able to throw a basketball, there needs to be someone for that mother. Because if that mother is going to suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder or any type of depression after she gives birth, it's all going to affect the child.
But let me ask you this before he wants to chime in. What becomes of that mother, who needs the help, but that pride steps in? Like, what do you do when you see, like you physically see, like they need it, but they refuse it? Like, do you just interject anyway? Do you impose or so you say no, but then what happens is because that parent didn't take your help.
It's a gentle push. It's called a gentle push.
And then what happens is then now that child becomes affected because, so when do you interject again? I already rejected you during birth. Do you step back, like do you continue to step in as that child grows, or you just, let it go, or wait until they turn 16 and become that serial killer? When does society or these mentors, intervene, step in?
It's just like a butterfly, okay? So first a butterfly is just a cocoon, okay? And so that mother, she's not a butterfly yet, and she has no idea. So what she's trying to do is just wrap and stay in there because she's trying to protect herself from you. Just because you said you're there to help doesn't mean that you have shown any trust base. They don't know you. So she's going to just struggle. It's not about pride. It's not about pride. When you get to learn that people that are struggling, it's not about pride. It's about fear. Who are you? No one's ever loved me enough to care about me. No one's ever loved me enough to want to care for my child. I'm damaged goods. I've learned that. I'm accustomed to that. And you're trying to hurt me. you're not trying to help me. It's not about someone having pride. It's more about fear.
What are your takes on that one?
So that's how would I put it? Like right along the line. And I think we need to really get out of this notion of holding these things inside of us that are really holding us down. Because when you mention now it's about fear, right? So when I started off, I said the Tele Foundation provide universal safety. And when you're talking about fear, right? So on the other side of if you're not fear, then you're safe. So the idea if you're safe, then you trust these people that are around you and you can share and ask for help. And this is one of the things that's really affecting us. So it's a catch-22 because there's so many people who ask for help, and because the people that are giving them the help see that they're in a vulnerable position, they take advantage of them. So it's a cycle that we continue to be in, but the fear has to go, right? And somewhere along the line we need to insert where people are safe with each other, where I'm a young mother, right? I'm in the hospital. I know I don't know everything that I need to know, but I need to get out of that fearful mode and get into a safe mode where I can find someone that I trust, right? And share, hey, I need help. Because at the end of the day, and something that you said, right, having the mentor there, right? There are studies that have been done with other people that as soon as the baby is born, they're at the hospital getting these tests, these experiments done, so they know what goes on. So when you say, hey, a mentor should be there at that point, they're doing it on the other side already. Like, I'm testing you now from 0 to 3 months. How does your child react? Why? Because if I know how they react at this time, I can start putting things into place. And this is what I'm saying. These are things that are done on a daily basis and we don't know about them. So having a mentor in that room, not just for the child, but also for the mother's sake or the family's sake, we need to insert stuff like that because they're putting other people that are doing psychological experiments on babies. And I'm reading a book right now, and that's how I became aware of it, that they have done these things for quite some time. And this is what, there's no one at any age that they don't understand what happens with that child through their cycle. And I mean cycle as in you may 0 to 2, or 2 to 4, or 0 to 5, right? They know all these things. This is what I'm saying. It's just us weren't taught these things. There's nothing accidental when you tell me that a child is at 16 and acting like a serial killer. I don't look at that as a surprise. Because there are studies that's done. One of them is called the A studies. They tell you what happens to the child between these ages. Then as an adult, they reflect and react with these circumstances. So even when we're looking at saying gun violence, right? Gun violence is now saying, all right, age is what? 16 and out, going out, and shooting up the community, right? These are things that didn't just happen at age 16 and out. For me, I call that reaction. Something happened now from what the studies have shown. Hey, if you live this lifestyle between the ages of say 0 to 5, then by the time you reach 16, 17, 18, these are the behavior you're going to exhibit. So the 16-year-old who has a gun and is considered a serial killer, right? That's not when it happened when he's 16. Something happened along the line, and going back to what you said, hey, we need to get it from the birth. And I know about the DHS circumstance. Are you having someone in the room that's going to take away that child, and you're supposed to provide for that child and that parent, right? But you rather take that child away, right? Put them into a system, and immediately, if you separate a child from their parent, that's emotional detachment. Now the parent starts to go into some type of psychological disorder. And they know these things. This is what I'm saying. When I look at the gun violence in the community, to me it's redundant. Because even for me, I said after my brother what happened to my brother, I started to look at life different. I don't see a gun problem in the community. I don't see it. You know why I see a problem? Because when someone takes up a gun to go shoot somebody, that's called a reaction. So we have a reaction problem, and I'll tell you this from a psychological standpoint. If you take a gun from a person, right, and they can't get to react with a gun, they'll find something else. So we have a reaction problem in the community, which is now being expressed on a large scale by using gun. If you take the gun away, I guarantee you, they're going to use something else. And just think about it, growing up as a child, and your mom wanted to spank you with the belt, right? If you held on to the belt, what did she do? She reverted to the slippers or find something. That's the human brain. If you can't find one thing, then you revert to something else to express yourself. If you stop selling the gun, I guarantee you the crime won't stop, because people are going to find something else to commit the crime with. We don't have a gun problem, we have a reaction problem. And these are the things that people are finding now accessible to react with.
So how do we get this reaction to stop reacting? Matter of fact, how do we get the community? I ask this a lot. Everyone's views are different. If I told everyone there's a free concert outside, free food, Jay-Z, Beyonce, whoever your hottest artists is, they're going to be here, everyone will make time to be here. If I said, we're having a peace march, a protest for all this gun violence, for all this reaction, I can't get anybody. I may get a few people who are, because it's in my neighborhood, or because so-and-so is there, I want to be newsy, and then you have that small who are there because they are concerned, they want to make some changes. How do you get overall everyone involved in something like this before it hits their door?
So, if they come out to Jay-Z concert, right, and they don't come out for something that's self-development, right, or concern for them, at the end of the day, it's called taught. They were taught that way. So at the end of the day, if they come out for the Jay-Z concert, they were taught, hey, when something is free and have some type of celebrity, right, I'll go. If it's for my personal development, then I was taught not to go. So at the end of the day, it's about what we are taught and what we become aware of. So if we want our community to have a different response, then they have to see the example, right? They have to be taught these things. And it's, at the end of the day, it's like a catch-22, because it's like, how do you really teach these things when you don't know them?
How do you teach these things to people that don't know these things? Like, can you mentor? Is it possible to mentor someone over the age of 18, or does it have to be an infant or a child?
I do it all the time. And as long as you breathe breath, you're able to change and to learn and to grow. You're able to shed your skin and grow a new skin.
That's what we need. We gotta shed this old skin and grow some new skin.
And back to what you were saying, basically, so if they don't come out for a march and they come out for a concert, you bring whatever activity to the concert. You don't have to have if the peace march is not where the people are and the people are at the party, then you bring the peace march to the party. Simple as that. Simple as that. You have to basically meet the people where they are. What did Jesus do?
He moved away from the building and went into the community.
That's it. So that's why Philly Pop-Up Weddings, I'm at the Chamonix Mall, And I have a 3,736 square foot space.
Okay.
And I plan on continuing what I started as far as mentoring the youth, mentoring. It doesn't even have to be young adults. It could be an adult that needs, right. I'm all about my community and assisting where I can, and it's a big issue.
We just got another guest up in here.
So it's about our business leaders stepping up and letting the community know that we're here. We're not here just to sell them products and just, okay, shut the door. Our services are from 9 to 5. But we need to show that we're here, not just, okay, here's a little $5 donation. What can we do to be involved with the community by training programs, by assisting in whatever we know in our business stature. That's what I believe, and that's what I promote, and that's what I'm doing on a daily basis.
Let me ask you, since you brought that up, we touched on parents. It's the parents' fault that the child acts the way they act. I'm hearing a lot that it's our elected officials whose fault that, these people are out here with gun violence. So I shared on Facebook, who is to blame for the gun violence? Self, the person with the gun, the parents, the police, and somebody responded and said it's the person with the gun. I get the elected officials are here to serve, to impose some legislative laws. But at what point do we stop shifting the blame to everyone except for the person that that has the gun? I want to hear from you, Mr. Jaws. Who do you feel as though is to blame for this spike, not just in Philadelphia, but throughout when it comes to gun violence?
Gun violence is as simple as this. You have children who go against their parents, and you also have the children who go against their parents, and also the children who just for some reason they had trouble in their life. They think that whatever which way they going towards the street with it, and they're adamant in a certain between music and movies and television and pressure with the girls and all that stuff plays a part in their psyche. It's a psyche thing, and so ego and pride and all that. So when an incident happens, they'll take it to the furthest extent. They won't think about it. They don't think about what they could do, to go around the situation, to on both sides. That is because you can have one person that's saying, okay, man, you right, what you right, stuff like that. Whatever you say is an issue, So because those people, those young people have issues within themselves that they escalate things to a certain amount that they just have to have the upper hand of the aggressor, and it's just really a pride and ego thing. No self-respect. They don't respect their parents and stuff. So you have to understand, it's just a culture thing, and it's sad because when they're doing their time in prison, then the reality sets in and they're coming home and, they start seeing things and, whatever psyche they're going through is to the worst point. So you have to really understand it's a different dynamic now. It's no one really to blame, but you could say the person itself because they have a lot of support too. These kids, they have a lot of support out here. All these programs and, even though they're taking schools away and all, you can learn through the computers and all this now. All the advantages in their hands. Trade programs, it just doesn't make any sense to me, even though they've taken a lot of programs out of the school, but you have people that's willing out here to do way more than what the schools will ever do, for you. So, they don't want to latch on to it, so we have to just really continue to try to reach, like my sisters just talked about, as far as with Philly Papa Weddings, some type of entrepreneurialism programs. Other businesses have to step up and try to fill the void, teach them a little something and take them a different way, because in that business is hospitality. So you have to learn hospitality, and I think that's the good thing about, people working with her.
I'm glad you touched on resources because unlike Delaware, they don't have a lot of resources. They're two pals, pretty much, and the summertime is the best time for the youth because that's when you have a lot of things going on. Other than that, from like maybe September on to maybe April, everything shuts down, so there's nothing for the youth in Delaware to do to keep them occupied. Philadelphia has tons of places, resources, but a lot of them don't know anything about them. A lot of them don't utilize them. And then here comes the sad part. A lot of these organizations are just for self. They take a vast majority of the money. They produce no statistics of any type of improvement within the youth that they grasp, which is kind of sad. And my question is, how do you get the money that's funneling to these programs to stop and go to other places? Because right about now, summer has not even begun, and the children are outside as if it is summertime, and it's getting turned into a war zone where these children need to be someplace besides stuck in the house.
Yeah, they have to, a lot of these programs have to step up. And like I said, that's why, God will bless certain people in certain ways to do certain things, and it's just a matter of time for us to really be effective. So, you just have to really support those who, put their money first before asking for money from people. Those are the ones I like to support. Those I know that put their money first, versus, put their summers away, and put their boots on the ground, started something. So, me myself, I try to take that same mantra. I don't try to do anything or say anything out of character that I wouldn't do myself, So.
Well, what are your thoughts on this?
So one of the things I look at when it comes to resources, and they typically say, we lack resources. I beg to differ. It's not that we lack resources. It's that the children or adults, their thinking level is at a low point.
No, Philadelphia we do have a lot of resources that a lot don't know are out here, but the very few that are out here.
Like lunch programs.
Yeah, but even that, there's tons of resources around us on a day-to-day basis. It's because their thinking ability isn't sharp enough to really see that. Look at everyone that comes in our community, they make money. How is it that we don't have any resources in our community, but yet still everyone else comes in and makes tons of money? Come on. It's not the resources, it's our skills. The little thing that you see in your community, you can scale it up and make something out of it.
So do you fault some of these businesses for what's going on inside of the community? Because when we ask about it, we tend to say it's poverty, it's there's no jobs, there's no resources.
All of those is what is called the blame game. We blame this, we blame that. When you talk about poverty, I come from Jamaica. There's things in certain places in Jamaica that people don't have. They're in what is called a poverty state, and they don't go around shooting people or doing all these things. So at some point we look at these things and we start to use them as a scapegoat.
Right.
When we don't really face the reality of what we really need to do. How is it that we're so talented, right? As us people. We're so talented and gifted, right? But yet still we would say that we're poor.
Right.
When what is it that makes someone rich is their talent or their gift. So how is it that we're now collectively sitting, not say in this room, you could get a group of people to sit in a room right now, and they can do this, they can do that, they can do this, but you're poor. Because you don't collectively work together. So it's not about lacking resources. Look at what's the movie called Social Media with Mark Zuckerberg. Like one of them knew how to build a program, one of them had a little funding, one of them had the house. And collectively they came together, right? And they made something out of it. At the end of the day, we have what it takes to get whatever we need. It's not no lack, no resources. Like, when you look at it, all right, this person may not have this, right? But this person have this. You have that. You have that. Collectively now, let's put it together and see how wealthy we become.
So, question is,
Yes.
how do we, because it would never stop, how do we slow down this gun violence? And I get what you're saying, and I get you. If we take the guns away, they will find other ways to kill us, but right now it just seems like the bullet is faster than the knife. How do we get...
You show people examples of what life can be beyond this. The same way when you look at it and you say, all right, they'll come to a Jay-Z concert. You know why they'll come to a Jay-Z concert? Because they're looking at the example of what Jay-Z accomplished. That's the only reason why they're coming. So if they go to the concert, it's because they want what Jay-Z has. When you go in our community, right, you're telling the child, oh, put down the gun and do what? You don't show an example of what the child can become. And when you look at it visually, we learn so much. Auditory, we learn so much by what we see and what we hear. So at the end of the day, if we're not showing it as adults, how could we get our children to now exemplify? They go to a Jay-Z concert because they want what Jay-Z has. What community leader in the community really has something right now that the child is going to aspire to get?
Right. And you know what? That's a good point. The point is that a lot of rappers tell this story, you know, and then the other kids think they had the same story because things are similar in our communities. And then so the next kid, he wants to do everything Jay-Z did. He wants to act just like him.
Exactly.
He want to act just like whoever, you know, not put it all on Jay. Might want to act just like whoever, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, whoever it is.
And that's what we have to look at now when it comes to the community.
Right.
The children will mimic what they see us do. So if we now become more successful in collaborating with each other, then guess what our children are going to do? They're going to collaborate with each other. How do they learn to take at 16, you learn to become a serial killer? Because you saw the adult do it.
Right.
And how do we get the adults? Because right about now, it seems to be
right. We gotta grow some new skin because this old skin ain't working anymore.
But you know, you have adults that act like children and all type of things. So
and he spoke on that.
I mean, you know, and that's the biggest problem I see with Philadelphia. A lot of adults act like kids when it comes to certain things. Like at a certain point when you realize that, you know, family issues, you know.
Everything is systemic.
Yeah, it's all systemic, but at the same time, even if it's systemic, once you realize you know it's systemic, you supposed to rise above it.
You can't. It's
No,
so hard.
It's just the mentality.
It's a state of mind.
Right.
So how do you assist someone without breaking them down? How do you go on a corner with a whole bunch of guys and not label them thugs just because their pants are down below their waist, just because it's not something that you prefer to be associated with, right? How do you go over to them while they're talking like they want to murk someone, like they want to go and commit a crime, like they don't care about anything? How do you go approach them? Are you fearful? Are you going to go and yell and try to disrespect them and try to show them that what you did back in the day, you think that's going to work? Or are you going to act better than and walk away from them?
So
Are you going to do that? As if you weren't a youth, as if you didn't go through them same struggles and them same mindsets of should I hustle or or should I go to school? I haven't seen my parents do anything, if that's the home you come from.
Let's talk this fact. Here goes the fact for you, okay? All the kids that are young and know already, I'm a juvenile. They ain't gonna let me back out from a shooting. Or I might get the first, second, or third chance. And that's what I'm gonna keep shooting for. So these kids, they think they can do whatever. And the reality of it is this. If you was in any other country, you would be hung. You would be hung for it. No matter if you were a kid, whatever. All that, none doesn't matter. So, but the laws are so crazy. Then when you try to do something to these kids out here, then you get locked up. So it's a known situation. Things that will change.
Let me show you. And it's ironic. Right before I came here, like I was in a student until Bill, right? Right before I came here, I went to visit my friend, and someone on the block, they saw me, and he came over to me, and he's like, "Hey, what's in it? What do you do?" And I started sharing with him, and he's like, "Oh, could I volunteer to be with you, assist you? I want to wear a suit too."
That's what he said.
And right there we exchanged. I didn't go up to him. When you look at his demeanor, you can see that, all right, he's not the well put together person, right?
Right.
But he saw something in me that caused him to walk over and say, "Listen, I want to come and volunteer and help with you, right? I want to wear suits too." This is what I'm saying. The children have to see these examples of what they want to become, and they will gravitate towards it. You don't have to teach children nothing. Why? Because if you exemplify the behavior, then they look, they see, they hear, and that's what they want to become.
Well, I'm gonna keep it real with you. When I was younger, I just wanted to do arts and entertainment, and I wanted to be like a cowboy, boot riding, motocross racer. That's what
you saw it, right? You saw it.
You know, those are the things I like. You know, then I started like in science, and I wanted to be a doctor. And then I was one of those type of kids, so I'm like well rounded in a lot of research. You know, I wanted to, film and producing and stuff, but I had to want to work on a project that's of some promise. And then I had some, and then everybody's doing this, and everybody, so the resources of actors and different people who they rocking with and all this, it's different now. So it's like, I just put it to the side, so I'm working on some real bigger stuff, you know what I mean, that I'll be able to work on some bigger stuff. So my goals to me all the way up to like I'm like 50 for me to actually reach them, because you got people around that you helping out, and other people ain't helping you back out, but you more of a help out to everybody else. So you have to look at it.
So when you get to things like the resources, the funding, the elected officials, it boils down to, who do we blame, quote unquote, at the end of the day, for everything that's, and I get, your poverty is not my poverty. Your low self-esteem is not my low self-esteem. Your situation is not my situation. But the thing is, at some point, don't we have to stand up and take responsibility? But the thing is, while we're doing all of this finger pointing, there is a spike in gun violence, and we haven't even hit the summertime yet. And a prime example was the shooting a few months ago near Albert Einstein. What happened? Somebody just opened fire, and I think it was like maybe 4 or 5 people. No, it was outside, boarding up. Just started shooting. What provoked somebody to do something like that? I get right now we have to include the mental. There's a spike in the mental health that needs to be addressed. And
it's not a spike, it's always been there.
It was, well, you're right, it's always been there, but there is a spike because now
there's more cases happening.
There's more cases happening
now. Between Corona and all the psyche of the world might be over.
They're not taking their medication, running out, losing their jobs. So
the police and citizens abuse, killings, and this is too much. Yeah, but it's everything's at a high. Everything's at a high right now. So it's like everything is like intense.
And how do you get it at a low?
It's intense. Yes.
How do you blame someone, right, when we don't even know where it starts? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't start with that child pulling the trigger. Where did they get the gun from? You get what I'm saying? What caused them to pull the trigger? So at the end of the day, it's like, you can't blame anyone. Politician, the gun person, like even for my case, somebody shot my brother. And it's like, I can't blame him. Why? Because it's not human-like for someone to take a gun and shoot someone. So when I look at it, I lost my brother, LOSS. But that person who took his life is LOSD. Because that's not a human value.
Right.
Your value is not around getting up and killing someone.
And this was just recent.
Yeah, so you're looking at that. I can't blame him because the system got him, but I don't know what part of the system got him for him or her to go into that circumstance where you murdered my brother.
Right.
So when you look at it now, at the end of the day, who do you blame? You don't blame anyone. You know better, listen, you get up and you start doing better. And hopefully that now can now have a ripple effect in our community where I'm not blaming the politician, I'm not blaming the church or the shooter. I'm now seeing that I could do better, and I get up and I do better, and hopefully that better now will now transcend in the community. That's what we need to do, and stop blaming this person, because at the end of the day, it may happen today, but it could have been going on, say, 10, 15 years ago. The reaction just came out today. You saw the reaction, but it's like looking at it now, it happened, the planning was 10, 15 years ago. I remember someone just shared with me saying that, hey, there's a young man who saw his dad got killed by someone when he was about 15, and when he grew up, he took revenge. Because at the end of the day, he saw who killed his dad. And when he was older, they both was at a club, and he's like, oh, that's the guy that killed my dad. He went outside, got his gun in his car, went back into the club, and shot the guy. But that's like 10, 15 years planning.
Yeah.
Because he's like, listen, I'm going to get revenge for my dad.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? So how do you really blame? It's hard to blame someone. And for me, it's like, hey, what can we do? If you know better, you do better. And hopefully this now can now, if you're doing more good, then what happens? It causes the bad to now decrease.
Well, I do know that this is going to be a discussion, not just here, not just on this station, not just in this city, but throughout the states. Like I literally was sharing with you, I was in Minneapolis attending a protest. Young lady, real fast, her fiance was murdered. So her son's father was murdered by police and was dumped in a recycling bin. So it was found in, of course they put it in a different city, and while she was putting together, or we were attending the protest for her fiance, you could hear through the crowds, police shot somebody. I'm in a different city, I don't know, is it Barry, what? I'm still recording, and I'm like, Barry, found out it was Deontay Wright. So we were literally 15 minutes from all this when it had happened. Ever since then, there has been one incident after another, just one after another.
It's almost as if it's like, no, it's not even that. It's almost as if they have like some of that type of like killing coalition of cops that across the nation that,
Thank you.
you know, they have some type of uniform with this thing, how they doing it, and it's ridiculous. But what's gonna happen is, if things don't start happening to the people who keep perpetrating these violent acts of murder and death upon our women and men, I'm afraid for the judges. I'm afraid for the judges, because guess what? I don't wish nothing on nobody, but when you allow them to keep doing the same thing, it's more than just looting. That's what these kids don't understand. It wasn't about looting and pocketing yourself. You looted, you supposed to be giving to the people who murdered the victim, whatever monies and stuff. You're supposed to be selling. They're not doing none of that.
That I don't condone.
You know,
but I want to touch on this again. It's very interesting to hear your stories. It will never stop. It's not going to stop. One of the questions I raised, Charles, was how we need to stop killing us, the same way we keep protesting and marching that they stop killing us. Because you can't tell them to stop killing us,
Let me tell you something.
and we don't stop killing us.
Philadelphia.
It's not just the Philadelphia.
No, but what I'm saying, I have to only talk about where I'm from right now. And possibly like many in any other cities, it's like people have to take it back. You have to take it back. You have to go back to when you was a kid and figure, what was this person trying to do when he was a kid? And then you tap into that person from their likenesses of when they were younger. Then you might reach some of these adults, to tap into that for a change. For instance, most people have not even tried to do anything that they fathomed that they wanted to do as a child.
So is that like a jealousy, hatred thing?
Yeah, so that brings about hatred, envy, jealousy, and basically just all out ignorance because they're uninformed, uneducated. They're uneducated as far as learning certain things that moves them forward to their goal.
But they're acting that jealousy, right, and envy out in their adult age, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're saying that they, as a child, they had these dreams, but the dreams didn't come true. So in the adult life now, right, they're acting out. And that's what I'm saying, it's so deep, it's like, who do you really blame?
Right.
Because it could start like, I'm a child, I didn't accomplish what I need to accomplish in life, but as an adult now, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to make your life miserable, because I didn't accomplish mine.
Exactly.
But did it start as an adult? No, it started as a child.
Exactly.
And these are the things that we got to look at, like, what do we put in place from the childlike age that now we could see now the results that we desire when they become adults?
Well, we can drag this on for a very long time. There's enough content in here to talk about with the mentoring, the programs, the community, our elected officials. I would love to have y'all come back and talk about this some more. I really do. But before we wrap this up, I would like for everyone to, if you could, elaborate a little bit more who you are again, your organization, how people can get in contact with you. Go ahead, sister. Wait a minute, and she here with her shirt, Philly Pop-Up Weddings.
I am located at the Neshaminy Mall, which is 707 Neshaminy Mall Road, Bensalem, Pennsylvania 19020. It's right up the 95, 5 minutes away from Franklin Mills Mall. What's the new name they call the mall? Philadelphia Mills Mall, and right off the Roosevelt Boulevard. And so you can reach me there. I am in Unit 218, right off of the food court. I am there to assist, give job training and assistance to youth and adults with needed. You can call me at 215-606-9696 and PhillyPopUpWeddings.com, PhillyPopUpWeddings@gmail.com.
And Instagram.
IG, TikTok, and YouTube.
My name is Cleus Glory Young, and I'm the founder of the Tebet Foundation, which is an organization that specializes in providing universal safety, which is going to be a little different from when you hear about safety. So one of the projects that we're coming out with right now is called the Airport Adventure, which is a children's book. And what we're doing now, I've studied the airport within the last 2.5 years and found out that the reason why the airport is so successful is because they utilize safety on a day-to-day basis. So I looked at it from a transitional standpoint. If you're able to translate the safety and bring it into human socialization, then you can get children and adults to take off just like a plane and reach their destination. and that's what I'm doing now, which is totally new. For me, it's bringing something new to the table that our children can aspire to by looking at it, how do you get to your destination? And that's one of the interesting part, because the airport takes people to their destination all over the world. So that's what now my foundation is interested in, getting children to go to their new destination, which is a part of what you said. From a young child, if you had that dream and you didn't go, then later on you become miserable. So for me, as an organization, we're looking, how do we get them to their dreams so they don't become miserable and being jealousy later on.
Yeah. Well, first I want to shout out one of our sponsors, it's OYEZZ.com, and Pulse Law Clinic. That's the Pulse, Pulse Law Lawyering Clinic, and the Expungement Program, Philadelphia, the DA's office. Shout out to them. I also want to shout out to the messages and the churches that have been keeping their doors open for those who are seeking some counseling and advice and mentoring. So we're going to shout that out. And Ramadan Mubarak to everybody. Your blessings and everything. May the Lord bring us closer during this Ramadan period of Ramadan that we have this month, and help everybody, not just Muslims, but help everyone. So I have Filmarts 215. It's PHILMARTS 215 on Facebook. What Filmarts does is we are looking for those who want to take times of their life and turn it into theatric plays, drama. It might be a role they want to play or character they want to play. We look for writers, many producers, people who can do a costume and all that good stuff, that encompasses a film set or television, theatric. Also, we have a family business called Council Contractors, and I wish out my nephew and my brother-in-law. They run the business. That's his name. We can Council Contractors on Instagram. The COUNCIL Contractors on Instagram, and Iron Green Entertainment Distribution, LSD Productions, and VRX new performance show we have coming out for those artists. Get interviewed and perform. So.
Wow, I want to thank everybody for coming out. Well, you got a whole resume over here. I don't know. I'm just doing radio and podcast. Make me up my ante, but I have been very blessed on this side. Very blessed on this side. A lot of things I have shared. I have birthday kids that pick me up, so that they are now sponsoring my spin-off from the radio.
I'm sorry, not District Attorney, Defenders Association Care, right? I'm sorry.
So they have been sponsoring my podcast, the Soul Show, which travels, and now I'm working on something else with Comcast. So, but I want to thank each and every one of y'all for coming out here. I appreciate the time, especially late. But I would love to bring y'all back out here and to discuss this a little bit more in detail, especially with the mental, our youth. Again, there was a lot mentioned about, the homeless issue, bringing it bags, and there's a lot that goes on. I don't want to exclude parents, but I don't want to include parents and say that parents are the blame for, their child, because granted, even though somebody is 30 or over that 21 age, they still have that childish mentality. We tend to look at like, oh, they're grown, but they're grown in age, but mentally they still have that, they have not matured. But I would love to bring y'all back, if possible, to discuss this is some further.
That's a youth I mentored.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I would love to, cause I wanna close this out real fast, but I appreciate y'all coming out here, interviewed you, Charles, numerous times. You've been on here a few times. I hear the rain is coming down there, but I thank all those that tuned in, phillyhotradio.com. I forgot to open up the phone lines, but we will be discussing this some further. And May the 9th, Mother's Day, I will be having a nice forum with some beautiful ladies, but it won't be here though. But I gotta go, so
Hey, shout out to
enjoy.
Justice International. Justice